This is not the conversation I wanted to have with you today, but it's what's come up over and over and over again. So I think this is something we have to talk about. I was just asked to give a Mastering Overwhelm workshop. Mastering Overwhelm is from Only Tens and what I've been doing the last couple of years for CEO groups and leadership groups. And I haven't done it in a while as I was working on this new book, but I got asked to do a Mastering Overwhelm workshop for the leadership team of a software company. They're putting out a new product, and it was kind of a last minute. And they're like, "Mark, can you please come in and talk to this executive team because they have been overworked for the last 2 years, and they're at their wits' end, and they really need what you have to teach." And at first, I was like, "Of course, I'm totally in. I will help. It works on my calendar. I love talking about this. Let me see if I can help. I'll come in and do this." But then I started thinking about it, and I started thinking, they're not going to like what I have to say. You're not going to like what I have to say on this overwhelm thing, on this being so busy. And I've had this conversation with several of my clients already this week who have been given so much responsibility, so many tasks, so many things that quote unquote have to be done and have to be done yesterday. And my answer is you have an impossible job. You cannot do it all. And even though you're burning the candles at both ends, and even though you're working until midnight and you're up at 6 o'clock in the morning and you're neglecting your family and you're neglecting your health and you're doing all these things, even though it looks like you're trying to get it all done and you're working really hard, you're actually getting less done. You're getting less of the right things done by doing it that way. So I'm a little nervous going into this conversation because of something that the person who asked me to come in said the CEO said, because I don't think the CEO gets this. So when I stand in front of his leadership team and say what I have to say about the topic, I think I might get a lot of pushback. But the truth is, you cannot do it all. There is too much work. My whiteboard, if I let it get so long, the things that I have to do for a solopreneur are overwhelming. It's just too many things. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago on the podcast. That if I wanted to do a podcast like my friend James Whitaker, the checklists and the things that I have to do are overwhelming. So of course, you put in systems to help with that. You delegate, you create teams to take things off your plate. Again, those things take work. But I have to go back to the attitude that you can work harder, faster, and neglect other parts of yourself and other parts of your life in order to get things done is just bullshit. It's just not true. The thing you need to do differently in order to be sane in an insane world and in an insane environment is to get strategic in the organization, but also get strategic on your to-do list. You have to really look at what is a 10 and what isn't, what has to be done and what doesn't have to be done, because everything doesn't have to be done, right? I talk about this all the time. You don't have to feed your children. You absolutely don't have, there's nothing you have to do. You don't have to feed your children, but you want healthy children. You want vibrant children. So you feed your children. So you want to get those things done, but nothing has to be done. Back at work, even though someone tells you all this stuff has to be done, it doesn't have to be done. Now, what do you do with that? The conversations that you have to have over and over again is the team is swamped. They can't take these things on. We need more resources. We need a longer timeline. Yes, you have a deadline. It's impossible. Or if we want to do it better, if you want this done, we need these resources. If you want this done, we need to stop. We need to let go of this priority. We need to have those conversations so that we have time to think. We have time to do a good job. We have time to gather ourselves. We have time to rest, to come back refreshed. And you will get more traction. You will get more things done better if you do that. Now, the question is, why don't we do that? Why don't we have these conversations? And that's different for every person. It comes to will look bad. It's a self-esteem thing. They'll think that I'm weak. They'll think that I'm incompetent. Or maybe I'll get fired, or they'll yell at me. It's all fear based. It's all inadequacy based. Let me prove that to you. So I use the Enneagram. We talked about this on the show, and I use personality types. And there's a whole bunch of different personality tests, and we can talk about each different personality type has a very different fear. So let's take a couple of different personality types on why, when they're overwhelmed with things that come in from let's say the CEO, gives you just the workload is too hard, and your job is to go back to talk to the CEO about that, to right size it. Why wouldn't you do it? Let's start with an Enneagram 8, who is the active controller. The biggest fear, you want an 8 on your team because they're the bull. They're the person who's going to get the most done. They're the workhorses. They will grind themselves into the ground. But their biggest fear, again, an Enneagram 8 controller, their biggest fear is feeling out of control, looking out of control, being out of control, looking like they can't handle something. So going back and saying, hey, this is too much. I can't do this. It's just not going to work. That hits that specific fear. So that will keep them from having that conversation. Not that they're afraid someone will be mad at them. It's they don't want to look like they don't have control of the situation. And they don't want to feel like they don't have control of the situation. They don't want to look weak because it's dangerous for them to look weak in the world. That's a core thing. And that's a very, very deep fear. That's that personality type. Let's take an Enneagram 3. An Enneagram 3 is the achiever. The Enneagram 3 loves to win. The Enneagram 3 loves to look good winning, right? But the biggest fear for an Enneagram 3 is looking bad or failure. Failure is not an option for the achiever. So when they go to say, push back and say, hey, there's too much going on. We need to throttle this. We're not going to be able to handle it. That pushes directly on their core fear of feeling like a failure, looking like a failure, and looking like they can't handle it. Does that make sense? So we go with the Enneagram 3, and all of a sudden, like, they're going to their core fears when it's just simple conversation of, can we throttle this and can we prioritize a little bit better? Let's go with the Enneagram 2. The Enneagram 2, that's what I am, is the happy helper. The Enneagram 2 gets their value from how valuable they are to everybody around them. So for me, I get my value for how much I impact your life, how much I impact my client's life. I get my value from someone saying my videos or my podcast help them in some way. So if I'm overwhelmed in an organization and I get yelled at for not doing something, that means I let someone down, that I wasn't valuable and I didn't contribute. And again, so my biggest fear is that I didn't contribute. So I will work twice as hard for to get that feedback than somebody else. That's not a healthy thing. So that goes against my core fear. And it goes on and on and on with every personality type. We have a different core fear. So if I just say, oh, you're just afraid to push back because you're afraid to get fired, that's too simplistic. What's the answer? It's to slow down. It's to actually look at, and that's what I do with my clients, as I have them look at, okay, your team is overwhelmed, you're dropping things out. You need to go have a conversation with another team member or with your boss or somebody about throttling things and changing priorities and gathering resources. Now let's take a deep breath and find out what you're really afraid of, what's really stopping you from having this conversation. Because 9 times out of 10, you're not going to get fired. 9 times out of 10, you are so competent, you are probably not going to, nobody's irreplaceable, but you're probably irreplaceable, and nobody's even thinking that you're irreplaceable. It's your own internal fears, which again are deep rooted, depending on your personality type, that are getting in the way of having a simple conversation of, we need more resources, we need a different timeline, we need to reprioritize in another way, or we just need rest. So I'm going to go in to this this organization and talk to their leadership team and have this conversation with them, and they're not going to like it. But I guarantee you that if you can do triage on what's coming in and really be thoughtful and strategic about all the things that need to be done and in what order and with what resources, you will have more traction. You will get more done. You will get more of the right things done, and you will get more of the right things done better. I guarantee it. It happens every single time. Hopefully that's useful. Again, not the topic I thought I was going to be talking about, and it turned into a little bit of a rant, but I appreciate that. I thank you for taking your time. I love you. Have a great rest of the day.